I don't know if you guys heard about that because there was a lot of things happening, but Nintendo just passed a patent in the US. I'm pretty sure it's in the US. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's in the US. And they basically patented the Pokemon mechanic. It actually was approved. I cannot believe that is approved, but it was. So yeah, the title of the video we're gonna watch, it's 8 minutes long. It's Nintendo just made games illegal. And it's not even for... I think it's kind of true. They might have actually killed some games.
Nintendo used to protect Mario's mustache. Now they want to own the concept of pressing a button. In the last 2 weeks, they've secured patents on summoning allies and switching between mounts.
That's
mechanics
insane.
that exist in everything from Elden Ring to bloody World of Warcraft and have done for years. This
Like
isn't
any
about
game.
protecting innovation anymore. This is declaring war on it. And to me, this is everything wrong with modern gaming. Corporate greed wrapped up in a Pikachu cosplay. So what madness have Nintendo been up to? Well, they've just had 2 patents granted. The first one covers summoning a companion that automatically fights enemies on your behalf. You press...
That's insane. Like anything from necromancy in like Diablo 2, or like any game that you can spawn something or summon something to help you. How will that be applied? Can they just shut down 50% of the games that are like out there today? Or like any games that will come out in the recent futures? Like I think that's so insane. I don't get how that's gonna work.
A button, an ally appears, it battles anything hostile nearby. And the second patent, mounts, literally jumping on or off a ground or flying
It's insane.
mount. A fundamental mechanic that's existed in every game that has a horse for literally the last 30 years. If you've played Elden Ring, you've used a summon. Spirit Ashes work exactly like this. Summon the Mimic Tier, it fights whatever's trying to kill you. And of course, From Software didn't invent this either. It's been a staple of games since the 90s. The scariest part of it all is Nintendo doesn't even need to win these patent fights. The threat alone does the work. Uncertainty kills the innovation faster than any court ruling ever could. When a small studio's prototyping companion systems, they're not thinking, will this be fun? They're thinking, will this bankrupt us? Will we be taken to court? Can we afford...
That's what I think it's super dangerous, is that the smaller companies and even the bigger companies will probably abandon some games or like just not even try to make their game, because just in the maybe future that Nintendo would sue them and make them bankrupt or like maybe lose them a bunch of money. That is so dangerous. Like recently we were all about not killing games, and I think Nintendo just successfully killed games. Like they literally made it. It's insane. We're living in another world right now. It's crazy.
A legal battle. That's how you suffocate creativity, making experimentation feel like Russian roulette. What Nintendo's done here is move beyond protecting characters to owning fundamental mechanics, the building blocks of how games work, and they filed these patents right after a tiny survival game with creature companions became the biggest thing in gaming. Coincidence? Of course it's not. Pocket Pair, a tiny indie studio, shipped a survival game with creature companions. I don't need to explain it. Everyone knows Palworld. It hit over 2.1 million concurrent players on Steam alone. And
this one we did knew though. We did knew that Nintendo was completely against Palworld existence. Like they were definitely going after them. That we knew. And we can probably kind of agree that it was a little bit of a ripoff of Pokemon. Like they definitely took Pokemon and expanded on the idea. But in my opinion, I think that's a good thing. It forces Pokemon to maybe not do the same thing for the last, like 15 to 20 years. They just released the same game with better graphics, and that's pretty much it. In some case, they probably made the game worse, depending on the mechanic they added or removed. And yeah, so I mean, they just had a competitor for the first time that was taking their idea and making something good or better, and they just decided to shut it down instead of making something better. That sucks.
It sold 15 million copies in its first year. Overnight, it became real competition for Nintendo. Now look, there's no denying that Palworld draws inspiration from Pokemon. Nobody's arguing that.
Yeah.
But what Pocket Pair did was innovate on what Nintendo refused to.
Maybe I should not have talked. You said exactly what I was saying. My bad.
The last 20 years. Added survival mechanics, base building, weapons, actual challenge. And the sales numbers are proof. There was a massive demand demand for this that Nintendo just ignored and still do to this day. But instead of competing by making better games, Nintendo chose legal warfare within.
It's funny because Blizzard is doing the exact same thing right now. They're suing Turtle WoW and they're suing. There's another private server. I cannot put my finger on it. I think it's like Epoch something. It's not Last Epoch because that's the ARPG, but there's Epoch something or Project Epoch. Is it Project Epoch? I think it is. Project Epoch. And the other one is Turtle WoW. They're suing both of them. Instead of like letting them live and creating something that is so good that these private servers would never exist. Because can we agree that if World of Warcraft was listening to their player base, creating things that their player base are asking and need, private servers would never exist. There would never be a reason for private servers to exist. Because people would play the original game, because it would satisfy them. Now it doesn't, so now they see a private server that is creating what they need, what they want, so they go there. I mean, that makes total sense. Like, I don't understand how Blizzard is not... If I was Blizzard, I would let them live. I would be like, okay, do whatever you want. And I would take their ideas, and that's it. That's what I would do. I was like, all right, good idea. I'm going to do the same. Or I'm going to expand on your idea and make something better. And then they're going to steal the player base back. And that private server might have to shut down, but forcefully. Now they're just trying to sue them. It's so weird. Hopefully they lose it. I don't know. Like, I understand it's their IP, but I hope they lose it, because if they win, they don't have to put effort into making a good game because they don't have any competition. But that creates competition, so it will force Blizzard to make something better. For the same reason that I really want Riot's MMO to come out, and Riot MMO to be so good that World of Warcraft not shuts down, but lose something like 50% of their player base in 1 month, and they have to create something better, and they start hiring devs, and they try to make something new again. They maybe make WoW 2, and like they really innovate on their IP. And I think this is very beneficial. We need competition, and events like this, like, it completely removes competition, and it's really bad for the industry. And the industry is already in a bad situation, so let's not make it worse, please.
Months after Palworld releasing, they file a patent infringement suit on Pocket Pair. The mad part is they filed those patents we just talked about after Palworld's success. They saw what worked, rushed to patent it, and then sued the people who actually dared to innovate. Awful behavior. The result is Pocket Pair's been forced to gut core features from the game. They removed the ball throwing mechanic, which, by the way, is another Nintendo patent filed after Palworld launched. They had to redesign their game after launch because Nintendo decided basic gameplay mechanics belong to them. That's not protecting IP. This is crushing a threat.
I've been following patent legislation for 15 years, for the better part of that period as a consultant. I have never seen many claims that were amended, but I've never seen even when or even if in a patent claim. It's bizarre. I guess they have some friends because it is weird. It really is weird. 15 years this guy has been doing it. Like, it's a long time.
Through intimidation. The saddest part is this isn't new behavior. It's systematic. Back in 2018, Nintendo went after a Japanese studio called Colopl over their virtual joystick controls. A 5-year legal battle ended with them having to pay 3.3 billion yen to Nintendo. That's over $30 million for letting players drag anywhere on the screen to move their character using...
What? Like, are we crazy? Why does this work? Frick it. I'm disappointed about, like, the justice system in this case.
A virtual touchscreen joystick, because apparently Nintendo have patented that too. Think about how mental that is. Every mobile game with movement controls, which is basically every mobile game, was suddenly in Nintendo's crosshairs. They basically patented the concept of moving, like they'd invented touching a screen. It blows my mind. But they didn't just go after commercial studios. Nintendo have nuked hundreds of player-made games, mods, and everything in in between. A DMCA blitz for anyone who even dares go near anything even remotely similar to a Nintendo game. Projects like AM2R and Pokémon Uranium, games that people spent years making because Nintendo just wouldn't. These weren't competing products, they were love letters, and Nintendo's response to that was legal annihilation. We're looking at 20 years of this same pattern. Nintendo sees innovation in their space and responds with lawsuits instead of responding with better games. They've been systematically bulldozing anyone who dares to do what they refuse to do. At this rate, they'll probably patent jumping next. The message to developers...
I would not be surprised at this point. They probably tried.
...is crystal clear. No innovation even remotely near Nintendo's IP is safe. They don't just own Mario's face anymore. They want to own the concept of moving left and right. It's crazy. The real damage, though, is developers are self-censoring before they even start prototyping. Right now, there's an indie team somewhere out there scrapping their companion combat system because they can't afford to find out if it's too close to Nintendo's patents. Another studio just redesigned their mount traversal because the legal risk isn't worth it. And this will be happening every day. Spreadsheet risk analysis has replaced game design. Instead of asking, will this be fun, developers are asking, will this bankrupt us? The most experimental spaces where new genres emerge are just going to go quiet because innovation near Nintendo's patents feels like playing with explosives. Like, just think about the mechanics that could just disappear. Summons, mounts, companion combat. These aren't Nintendo innovations, they're gaming fundamentals that have evolved across dozens of titles, practically every genre over decades. The power imbalance is massive. The big studios can afford to fight these legal fights, but
because that's the problem, is that even if they're wrong, they can still sue a company or sue a video game industry, like an indie game industry, into failure, like into complete bankruptcy. They don't need to be right. They can just sue them and sue them and sue them. And that's what's dangerous. And hopefully, and very hopefully the best thing that could happen is that after making this move, Nintendo starts losing a lot of money. But I think they're too big to fail. They might not be too big to fail, because I just don't think there's going to be enough people that will stop buying their game to create a dent big enough that they lose so much money. They will just, they will recover from this, in my opinion. It just breaks my mind that they're able to do this.
Indies can't. So the people pushing the boundaries, the ones creating genuinely new ideas, they're the ones getting sued out of existence. Meanwhile, safe AAA sequels march on unchanged. And we feel it. Fewer weird systems, fewer risks, games designed by lawyers instead of designers. The creativity that actually keeps video game innovation alive gets suffocated under a pile of patent applications and lawsuit threats. It's no longer competition, it's complete control. So let's call it what it is. It's not passive defense of intellectual property. It's an act of aggression designed to control who gets to make what kind of games. Nintendo watches a tiny studio succeed with a mechanic they've ignored for decades, and their response is to rush to patent those exact mechanics, then sue. The timing isn't a coincidence, it's a strategy. See what works, file a patent, then use that patent as a weapon against anyone who dares innovate in your space. Think about it like this. Valve created Steam, but they didn't patent digital game distribution. Epic made Unreal Engine available to all developers. Even bloody EA, competes with better games, not better lawyers. When Apex Legends exploded, did they sue the Battle Royale genre out of existence? Of course they didn't. They made their game better. And when I'm praising the likes of EA, you know something is seriously wrong. But Nintendo, they've turned IP law into a literal siege engine, filing patents on basic mechanics. Wait for someone to use them, sue them. Most indies can't afford that fight, so they fold. The ones who can afford it get bled dry in court for years. Either way, Nintendo wins without having to actually innovate anything. You don't have to beat your...
Well, I mean, this is a dream situation for a big company like a AAA industry, right? Like, there's multiple games that works like that. I was talking about World of Warcraft earlier. That's what they're doing. World of Warcraft has not been innovating new systems for World of Warcraft since 2016. In my opinion, at least, Legion was the last time they made something new. And it was not that new, but it was new. They did Mythic Plus. I think it was quite innovative for the game. But they didn't make anything new for the longest time after that. They're just making new raids from the same mechanic they were using for already 10 years. They are not innovating anymore because the recipe works. There's no competition. There's no nothing. And people still buy the game. So... because there's nothing else that can replace it. And that's why it's the perfect situation for Nintendo, because now they don't have to be better. There's nothing else. So if you want to play a game like Pokemon, you have to play Pokemon. You cannot play something else that could resemble it, even by a little bit, because they will sue the shit out of them. And that fucking sucks.
Competitors, when you can make competing too expensive and too risky to even try. If you own the rule book, then everyone else plays by your rules or doesn't play at all. This is where we're heading now. Fewer studios willing to take risks because the penalties are too high. More of the same bland, committee-designed games because innovation has become a huge liability. What Nintendo's really protecting, it's not their characters, it's not their innovation. They figured out that you don't need to make better games when you could make making games too dangerous for anyone else to try.
Exactly.
So when you see a studio taking real creative risks, building something weird, something experimental, something that pushes against the established order, support them, because those risks are bigger than you think. They're not just risking failure anymore, they're risking everything. As always, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to like, comment and subscribe to support the channel. It all helps massively. Thanks again. I'll see you in the next one.
I don't think I was subscribed to his channel, but I will right now. That was a really good video. I will post it on Twitch, so you guys can do the same.